the boss should have the skill to sort out what are the key skills of the team members. It's really important that due to the high complexity, you have the right experts at the right position within your team. Hierarchy in terms of I'm the boss and you're just a team member is not the right attitude in 2020, I guess. And this mixed together, the technology and the attitude, that, in my opinion, is the big change.
We have the pleasure of welcoming Gero today to our interview series. I'm Aishwarya Jain from the peopleHum team. Before we begin, just a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM, that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year, and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest. We have with us Gero Hesse, MD at Territory Embrace, HR and recruiting specialist with a high penchant for innovation and thought leadership. He's also among the top 25 HR influencers. He blogs himself and runs satcon.com, one of the most popular and highly regarded HR blogs. Welcome, Gero. We're thrilled to have you.
Hi, Ash. Thanks for the invitation and for the nice words introducing me. I feel very humbled. Okay.
It's our pleasure, Gero. So, Gero, you're among the top 25 HR influencers. So how has being a leading influencer helped you change the way people and organizations look at the changing trends in the future of the workplace?
That's a good question, because you should ask the people who nominated me for this thing. I mean, there's a lot of different lists like that, and to be honest, I feel humbled again to be on the list. But then again, there's so many people with great ideas. In my case, I'm pretty sure it's because I do the blog satcon.com, which is in German language only, because I live and work in Germany and focus on the German market. But nevertheless, I do the blog since 10 years. And at least in German-speaking countries, it's pretty popular for people who are interested in employer branding, HR marketing, and recruiting, which are the topics I deal with. So if you do something like that and you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, and all the other social media channels like Instagram and so on, there's a high chance that people feel that you are pretty innovative because you write about innovation and new ideas. And I guess that's why I'm on the list. So if you ask how did I influence people, I don't know, probably through my articles and the best case examples I provide everybody who's interested in these topics with. So I guess that's it.
That's excellent, and I think you're doing a great job motivating others, especially in Germany. You also focus on recruitment, right? So what do you think are some of the trends in recruiting that are changing how we hire, how we approach recruiting, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of these changes?
Yeah, I see 2 big major trends. One is technology driven and the other one is attitude driven. So perhaps let's start with the technology, because I guess that's the most important thing. So we are living in a time where there's exponential growth of technology. You have all the artificial intelligence things coming up, automatization of processes and things like that. And of course, that's very, very relevant to the way how recruitment works. So in the past, when I started like 20 years ago, it was all paper-based, and you had paper resumes, and people, also the HR guys, but also the applicants said, oh, we need paper because you really feel, is it good paper or not so good paper, and did the applicant really take care in setting up his application? But nowadays, of course, this is all digital and things changed. and the processes became way, way faster and way more accurate, because you can imagine with a paper-based process, of course, there are a lot of errors that can happen throughout the process. Applications get lost and things like that. This can't happen if you have an applicant tracking system and if you have digitalized applications and so on. But this whole thing I just described happened like 10 years ago, at least for the big companies here in Germany. If you take a look at smaller companies, they are currently really looking at technology and introducing ATS tools. That's a big trend. And of course, you have artificial intelligence. This is more the newer trend, to really make sure that you have automated matching processes. So the technology looks at the application and checks if this application matches to a certain degree to a certain job description and so on. So this is what we're facing, and technology also becomes much more affordable. The costs are not as high anymore. So I think that's a real, how can I say, basic but fundamental trend, very important. And if you look at the current situation with the coronavirus, I'm very, very sure that this is a catalyst for even more technology and more automatization in the world of recruitment. Because nowadays, video interviews become more normal. What we're doing right now here, this was not possible like 10 years ago. You're sitting in India, I'm sitting in Germany, and we're talking like we're sitting in the same office. So you can do the same thing with applicants. And I think this changes the whole way how recruitment works. So technology is one big driver. I'm pretty sure we're going more into detail on this topic. But there's, in my opinion at least, there's another trend that's more attitude driven. That's more the mindset of people. And what do I mean with that? The way how organizations work change a lot due also to technology. So it's way easier to communicate via social media, via tools, and of course the transparency becomes higher. So nowadays it's pretty easy to find out how's the company culture of a certain company. You can read on Glassdoor or in the German market on Kununu. You can find out what employees say about a certain employer, and this changes a lot of things, because in the past, like also 10, 15 years ago, that was a black box. You didn't really know how it felt to work within a certain or for a certain company unless you really knew someone who worked there. But nowadays, you can go online, on LinkedIn, on Glassdoor, and find out what kind of culture do they have, how do they communicate with each other, how's the communication strategy and culture and employer brand. Is that employee-centered, or is it strictly hierarchical, and so on. So this whole attitude and culture thing, in my point of view, is as important as technology, and changes a lot. So the way how people work with each other is less hierarchical and more, let's say, skill and competency driven. And not necessarily the boss has the most or the best skills. And the boss should have the skill to sort out what are the key skills of the team members, and really set up a team that's very heterogeneous, very diverse, to get the best out of it. In a global world that we are facing nowadays, it's really important that due to the high complexity, you have the right experts at the right position within your team. And so that also changes a lot. So hierarchy in terms of I'm the boss and you're just a team member is not the right attitude in 2020, I guess. And this mixed together, the technology and the attitude, that, in my opinion, is the big change that we're facing in the business world right now.
That is so insightful, and that makes a lot of sense. And when you talk about employer branding, what do you think are some important aspects of it? What is it that organizations must actually focus on?
I think at first, an organization should really focus on their homework, because most of the companies we deal with in my real job, so the Saatkorn blog is my hobby. My real job is I'm managing director of Territory Embrace, which is an agency for employer branding, HR marketing, and recruitment. So we talk to a lot of companies, and most of the time we're having our first talk with a potential client, and they say, hey, create a great campaign so that people are keen to work for us. And we say, okay, but there's more to it than just nice pictures, nice creatives, a nice video or so. What are your basics? What's your fundamental reason? Why should I work for you as a company? So really, if you take a look at Simon Sinek and the Golden Circle, I strongly believe that why is the most important question. So it's not what you do, it's not how you do it, but it's why do you do this? And then you have to answer all these other questions. So what I mean is, at first you should make sure that you have the right culture in place, that you really work on your mission, that you really can describe why someone should work for you as a company. And then if you have answered this, then you can really work on all the HR instruments. You can work on the salary, on the timetables, the working hours, the way how you interact, and so on and so on. And if this is set up the right way, then you can start to develop your employer value proposition, to come up with some very fundamental sentences that describe you as an employer and make clear why someone should work for you. And I don't mean it in a way, which is the second point that most clients want to have. They want to have something that doesn't hurt anybody, like without any edges. It must be creative, it must be cool, it must be fun, but it can't be hard-edged. And I always say that's not the right point. You should really define who you are, but you should also say who you are not as an employer, because not everybody will apply later on, but you don't want everybody to apply. So if you do a good employer branding, you might get less applications, but better fitting applications. So it's not about we do employer branding and in the past we had 10,000 applications, now we have 20,000. But if there are like 19,000 that don't fit to you as a company, as what you are standing for with your culture, then it's 19,000 times work, recruitment process, and cost involved. And so it would be better if you have just one job description to only get one application, but the most fitting application, which is utopia, of course, will never happen. But I'm strongly convinced that you should define what you are and what you are not to really make clear. So it must be authentic at the end of the day.
Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. It's just being genuine about who you are and what you don't believe in. So just set those guardrails right, so that you will get a really good, culture fit match with respect to applications.
Yeah.
And what do you think are the challenges that HR will be facing in terms of recruitment in the near future? As you said that, technology is playing a role in resolving these challenges, but are there some people challenges that also, recruitment is facing?
Absolutely. At first, I would say it really depends on which target group is relevant for you as an employer. So what we can see is that due to the digitization, that there's way more competition than in the past. Let's look at all the digital talents that are interesting for almost all companies, because the whole digitization is, of course, not only something that's relevant for HR and recruitment, it's relevant in general. In the past, for instance, automotive companies, they would compete in terms of the talent with other automotive companies. They would not compete with media companies or with IT companies. But nowadays, due to the increased importance of technology, the competition is everywhere, because all companies are looking for digital talent, and therefore the automotive companies compete with media companies, compete with Google, compete with Facebook, compete with small companies, with big companies. So the whole competition really changed. And that's something that most employers did not understand yet. They still think, yeah, we have a certain group that's relevant. It's not the case. In terms of digital talent, they are all relevant for all other companies as well. So that's one facet if you look at these target groups. Of course, digital talents are not the only target groups that are relevant. There's other things as well. And I think it's really important that you know your target group in detail if you're looking for people, because the way how to get applications also changed a lot. In the past, like 20 years ago, it was all via a newspaper. So that's almost that. It's all online, it's all digital. Then you have the job boards. I would not bet on the super success of job boards in 10 years from now, because there will be other things. I strongly believe in Google for Jobs, for instance. And I strongly believe also in performance-driven models, like you only pay for the hires you get. That's a different business model, of course. And it's also, again, technology-driven. So if you take a look now at the recruiters or at the profession of recruitment, this changed a lot. As a recruiter nowadays, you must know the strategy of your company. You really must know the target groups that are relevant. But you also must know what kind of media does the target group you're interested in use. Is it Instagram? Is it Snapchat? Is it YouTube? Is it Facebook? Is it a company's website? Is it job boards? Whatever. Because all the old channels are not gone at all. They're still there. So the amount of channels is really growing exponentially as well. And you have to be an expert in this. But then again, you also have to be a good salesperson for your company. And that means you must know the strategy, but you also must know the employer brand. Why should someone work for this company? You have to be able to tell this story, and you have to tell it in a way that people believe you. So it's way more complex, the job of recruiting, than like 5 or 10 years ago. Yeah. So, and there's also more technology involved, and so I think it also becomes a very crucial role for companies. I don't know really about India, but in Germany and in a lot of other Western countries, we have a demographic change. So there's not so many people born, and therefore there's less talent on the market. And so the competition is even bigger because there's less people coming up. So that's also another point that makes recruitment more difficult and more crucial, because in the past there were always enough applications. But at least here in Germany, you have certain positions where nobody applies. There are no people anymore. I guess in India it's a different case though. So that's certainly not a global thing.
You're right. That's where technology really helps. Do you also believe that since HR and recruitment is now, such a complex and gray area, do you believe that there should be a bifurcation between sourcing, then candidate experience, then recruitment, and then HR? Do you think there should be a bifurcation?
Yeah, I strongly believe in that. I mean, but that's in my opinion, that's a side effect to the whole professionalization of recruitment that I just described. The job changed a lot, and therefore it becomes much more complex, and it really makes sense to look at different steps in the process. So for instance, at first you have the sourcing part to find really the right candidates. Then when they apply, you have the candidate experience. You got to make sure candidates really have a great experience. And this is so funny because it's on the same hand, it's so easy. Everybody is used to buy things, for instance, at Amazon. And the buying experience at Amazon is great. It's so easy. Everybody can understand, and it's fast, and they help you. It should be exactly the same with recruitment. And if you really focus on this, you see how tricky this is to have a fast process that everybody understands, where people get help at the right points, and perhaps at first they get help via chatbots. And if that doesn't work out, then perhaps there's a phone line where somebody really helps, like a human helps. So this is important. And then you have recruitment, and then you have onboarding, which is also very important, because you can lose people at any stage of the process, which always costs money, and yeah, it's not so nice.
Yes, absolutely. And Gero, you believe in a partnership-oriented leadership style. What
Absolutely.
about it, makes so different from the styles that most organizations practice nowadays, and how will it help in creating a customer-centric work culture?
Yeah, I tried to explain parts of it already in the beginning when I spoke about the attitude thing. I think we live in a time that's very dynamic. So things change very fast due to the fast development of technology. There's younger people who grow up with completely different media perspectives than older people. And of course, they expect to get the same service also in recruitment. Like I just said with Amazon and the recruitment process. Yeah. So I feel the leadership style, if it's strictly hierarchical, it's old-fashioned these days, because you really need experts in different fields. And you as a boss, you can never be the expert of all the different steps in the process. So your main role, at least in my opinion, should be to be able to discuss with your people, to be a sparring partner. That's what I look for, the word, a sparring partner, to really discuss things and develop the right solution together, and really make sure that the team is set up in the right way, that the team gels with each other, and that it's also a team effort to achieve certain goals. Because the way the world today is too fast, it's too complex, it's too global to really work with an old-fashioned leadership style, in my opinion. And also, at least in Germany, most of the people, they don't want to work for old-fashioned bosses anymore. And due to the situation over here with the demographic change, the companies have to change, because otherwise they don't get applicants anymore. But again, I'm sure that differs from land or from region to region. But at least here in my part of the world, that's clearly how things develop. You have also this new work trend, or future of work trend, with more flexibility. So for instance, at the moment, due to the Corona shutdown, we all work in home office. And if you are not having a trust-related company culture, it's really difficult, because you can't control the employees anymore. They are at home. You can't see if they work or not, like in the past in the office. So you really have to trust the people. And now it comes full circle. I said a few minutes ago, it's so important to answer the why. Why should I work for you? It's not like because I pay you some money. That's a given. Yeah, of course you will get money to work for me, but there must be a higher sense, something where people really feel the need to make the world to a certain extent better with their work that they are doing. And if that's the case, I strongly believe that most of the people are motivated to achieve good things. They want to be proud for themselves. So if you have this trust-related partnership leadership style, I think people can experience this feeling the best way. So that's why I think it's really important. But it's a personal opinion, and I'm pretty sure that there are other people as well. And yeah, the world is colorful and big, and there might be also places for old-fashioned, strictly hierarchical leadership structures. But in my opinion, I don't know. You need that, for instance, in the military or so. Yeah, it's really, you have to do certain things in a certain way. If you don't do it that way, people will be killed or something. But if you have a different surrounding where it's more about creativity, more about the best process, more about finding out new ways, experimenting in a fast way. So like try, fail, try again, find the right way. I guess leadership, partnership-oriented leadership style would always work better.
Absolutely. Also makes a lot of sense. And when you talk about technology and you talk about these ATS systems, what do you think should be the primary focus of ATS systems? What is it that customers or organizations really look for in a good ATS system?
Oh, that's a huge question, because there are so many different aspects that you have to look at. So at first, perhaps let's start within a certain corporation. So you gotta know what kind of target group do they want to hire. So you need an ATS that has APIs that can be linked to certain platforms, such as whatever, LinkedIn, Google, or certain job boards or social media, to make sure that you can publish your job descriptions. So this should be there. You should have a multi-posting tool where you can really make sure that your job descriptions are on the right platforms. You should have all kind of communication tools included to really automate the process. So for instance, if somebody sends an application, that this person gets right away an answer. And a matching tool, matching engine would be great, yeah, so that you can again see if a certain application really matches a certain job description. So then, of course, if you work in bigger teams, you must make sure that the way your team is structured, people really see what colleagues did with a certain applicant. So let's say you have people who share their job and they work on the same application. Of course, they must know what's going on. So you have to have all the communication information integrated as well. And then if you look at the candidate experience, you should have something where people can say, I'm interested to work for this company, and this is my background, so please send me job descriptions once they occur in the system, and so on. So there's a lot of things, and I always suggest at first it makes sense really to sit down, to have a thorough look at your own process and your own needs, write this all down, and then really check out different ATS systems, take a look at test surroundings that most of the providers have, and test it for a week or so and find out if it works. So that would be my suggestion. But there's way more. It's a question, it's so big because there's so many functionalities these days. It's way different than like 10 years ago. So also with all the artificial intelligence things, you really have to check if these things really work properly and so on. So it will be a long list of functionalities, that's for sure.
Right, that is true. Do you also see, functionalities like, especially AI-based, like a resume parser being used in a place like Germany? Are people really finding that useful?
Yeah, I think 2 years ago it was almost like the feeling was there is no recruiter needed anymore because AI will do all of this. But that was like 2 years ago. There was so much enthusiasm, and nowadays I think it's come to a very realistic point of view. So technology will always help us to make processes faster and more transparent. But of course, you need a recruiter who works with the technology and also with the candidate. So at least in my opinion, technology is always a help, and to a certain extent, of course, will make things in an automated way that we've done before manually, such as, let's say, pre-screening of applications. Is the application, is everything there? Are the fields all included? All the information you need to make a decision? This can be done automatically. There's no person needed to check this. And this is good because it's boring work. And you could use the time that you spend doing this kind of work now to really look at the 2 or 3 or 5 candidates that are really interesting. Spend more time with them. And I think nowadays, so after this big enthusiasm, there became a more realistic approach, and the machine does not do everything, but can really help to make things more accurate and faster. And then you can focus with your human attitude and human touch more on a let's say, interview or the onboarding. I think perhaps it was like 3 to 5 years ago, but nowadays people are really open. The only thing I mentioned is they are more realistic. A few years before, like 1 or 2 years before, there was a lot of fear in the recruitment group of people to lose their job. This is not the case anymore. It's more like, yeah, but we can be faster, better with technology, but we would still need humans to really use these machines. Perhaps we don't need 10 recruiters anymore, but 8 or so. Yeah, but that's okay. I think people are really open to work with new technology. Yeah, there will be more technology, and of course, as a recruiter, you have to understand technology, all the matching engines and stuff like that to really work properly. So if you're not interested in working with technology, recruitment might not be the right job for you.
Right, absolutely. So Gero, to wrap this interview up, I'm going to ask you the last question, which is if you have any important sound bites that you would like to leave our viewers with.
Yeah, well, I have lots of sound bites probably, but most of them are relevant to the German market. And I'm pretty sure that most of the people who are listening to this program are not from the German market, but international. So if you are interested, if you speak German, just take a look at my blog, saatkorn.com, check out my podcast. But if you are not speaking German, then I can't suggest it because you won't understand it. Nevertheless, it was a pleasure talking to you, big fun, and yeah, so perhaps I'll invite you back to my podcast and blog to do the interview vice versa. Because I'm also interested in what's going on in India, I have to say.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. And I had a pleasure talking to you as well. I think it was, a great learning experience, and it was a very engaging conversation and a good way to, look at different scenarios geographically as well to understand markets. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Have a nice day. All the best.